Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry that I'm so worked up, but I am just really, really mad. And I think that it's time for Americans to be mad, but also to be strategic. And we're looking to our lawmakers. We're looking to people like you. What do we do? How do we fix this? This is not right.
Well, a couple of things you got to remember. The reason you're mad is because this is the natural human reaction when people that have overwhelming power are using it against citizens, right? This is just how people react when people feel bullied. And what happened that day was 8 agents that were basically bullying a woman, and this nurse decides to step in because that's his training, right? But everything you saw after that, and Fanone's a good friend of mine, years of experience in law enforcement. I have experience in the Marine Corps and some very dealing with insurgents shooting at me and civilians at the same time. And everything that they did from start to finish was unprofessional. It was illegal. It was something that is criminal. And number one, these men have to be held accountable. And the reason why you have everything that's happening right now is because, like Officer Fanone said earlier, this was by design. You surged 2,000 federal agents into a city that only has about 600 full-time police officers. You tell them they're unaccountable to anybody. You basically don't really give them any rules of engagement. And then they start bullying the city instead of actually focusing on immigration enforcement, right? This is not immigration enforcement. This is not professional immigration enforcement at all. Not that I've seen in the last 20 years that I've been involved and seen it in Arizona. This is an excuse for this administration to use these federal law enforcement in big cities, in big blue cities, to intimidate the populace. So what do? Step one, everyone needs to be asking for accountability. You know, Officer Fanone, you were in the police when you were in the police force. Whenever there was a shooting, there was always a investigation afterwards. We've not yet seen any makings of that. Number two, we at the federal level, Senate, we're going to hold up the funding. We cannot be funding the murder of U.S. citizens without any accountability. And so we're going to try to get to a position where hopefully we can come back and work with Republicans to open the government, but not when they're doing this, not when they're killing innocent Americans on the streets. That's not what people wanted. People wanted the borders to be secure. Step one, that happened. Step two, they wanted for people that are in this country that have criminal records, that are dangerous, to be deported. They didn't want a massive amount of federal agents in our big blue cities killing Americans. And that's what's happening right now. There's been 2 murders in Minneapolis so far this year, and both were done by ICE agents or affiliate agents. And that's a big, big problem.
One thing I want to look at, since you said that you have military training, Michael Fanone has police training. This is a slow-mo video of Pretti on the ground, and this is before he was shot, and it looks like he was already disarmed when they shot him. Watch this.
I've seen him many times, yeah.
So that was the gun being removed, and then they shot him. Yeah. How do they deny this? This is evidence, correct? This will be used if there is ever an investigation.
Well, it's ever investigated. Look, the problem isn't these agents. Obviously, there is a problem. The fact is that your U.S. government, your elected officials, Donald Trump and down, Stephen Miller, these cabinet members and their allies are lying to you to your face. They're lying to Americans and saying what you saw, you did not see. Like, this is some real 1984 shit happening right now, right? They're lying to you to your face and want you to accept the lies. And we all saw what happened. That man was clearly assassinated. There's no reason for that amount of force that's being used. There was no attempt to de-escalate, by the way, at all. As a matter of fact, all I saw was more and more escalation. As this man is trying to leave with this woman who's trying to help, they actually drag him back into the fight. And because they have this attitude, attitude that they are in a war zone that's probably being reinforced by their command leadership over there, they are acting in the way that they are, right? But that's not professionalism. That is not how you should be treating U.S. citizens. That's how you should be treating anybody in general. And the reason that this is happening is because you have no accountability. You have a command structure, the president and down, who want to see violence on our streets. And at the same time, we have a bunch of men that aren't really trained for this type of enforcement. These guys are a bunch of Border Patrol guys. Border Patrol guys are good at the border. They're not good at internal situations. And this is what ends up happening, because this is what the president just wants, is fear, not professional law enforcement.
Michael, when we look at that video, we analyzed it a bit this weekend, but now, there are more videos coming out. I'll show the one in just a moment. There's one also from inside of the car, that white SUV that he was being taken down in front of. But when you see that they had already taken his gun away, what does that say to you as an officer? Now, to me, I'm a layperson. It looks like to me, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many people on the scene. One person cannot see what the other person is doing, lack of training. And did it, for him trying to protect a woman, did they have to go to these lengths, as if you want to call them law enforcement officers or whatever you want to call them?
Well, first of all, like Governor Walz said yesterday at the press conference, the video speaks for itself. And I agree with everything Senator Gallego said. It's clear from the beginning that all of the behavior exhibited by the agents was escalatory behavior. There was no attempt to de-escalate the situation. They were the ones that targeted the victim in this case, who was simply trying to render assistance to this woman. They dragged him back into the fray. They assaulted him. And it appears to me, in watching this video, that upon discovering that he was in fact armed, I mean, obviously there's no discernible audio. I can't hear if he declared that or what the circumstances may have been, but he was disarmed. And I want to bring, again, as somebody who worked in small mission units for the better of 20 years with the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., I came across armed individuals all of the time. And for the first 2/3 of my career, each and every one of those individuals who was in possession of a firearm at the time in Washington, D.C., it was illegal.
That's right.
And so I knew that those individuals were illegally possessing that gun. And still, as I told you yesterday, Don, in hundreds of weapon seizures, I never felt the need to discharge my firearm. And I was able to safely recover those weapons from individuals' persons, as were other members of my unit, and place that individual under arrest. And so the mere presence of a firearm does not necessitate a deadly force situation. In this case, add to that, this man was a lawfully carrying this firearm. He had a concealed carry permit. It was a registered firearm. And clearly these agents took the mere presence of that firearm as justification for deadly force, which is illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional. And he was executed. And it's clear to me, I mean, from the video, that at the time of the first shot, he was not in,
possession of a weapon.
He was not in possession of that firearm at all. And so this, again, going back to the lack of training, lack of experience on behalf of these Border Patrol agents, it was a chaotic situation. Clearly, there was no communication between these agents, coupled with escalatory behavior and the emboldenment and empowerment given to them by this administration and by their superiors, that they are, acting with full immunity from any criminal culpability. This is the end result.
Don, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Look, and this is why it's important that you have professional law enforcement when you're dealing with U.S. citizens. Border Patrol, if they encounter a gun, someone crossing the border, it's automatically illegal, right? And a lot of times these guys are in some very isolated situations. They have to be a little more extreme there because, if something goes wrong, you're far away from any help. And this is from my experience on the Arizona border, talking to Border Patrol. These guys are in the middle of urban cities. Did they give these guys any type of actual training how to deal with urban situations, how to deal with, U.S. civilian contact, how to deal with, riot control, all these kinds of things? You just can't throw people in. I'm sure they're very well trained up to the Border Patrol standards, but Border Patrol has never been trained to operating in U.S. cities in the capacity they're doing now. And now you're throwing them in there. You're giving them no accountability. You have a presidency that's basically giving them, carte blanche to do whatever they want. And now you're creating a hostile environment, and they don't know how to de-escalate because they've never been trained to do that in a U.S. citizen. This has been a volatile situation led by bad leaders that is causing this. This is ought to happen in the bad way that's happening.
I want to play this for you, Senator, and then Michael. But this is Kristi Noem on Fox News yesterday.
The protocol. There is an angle of the video that we've been playing all morning where it shows an officer removing a weapon either from Alex Pretti's waistband or a holster. And he walks away with the weapon before officers start shooting. It appears that Alex Pretti was disarmed. If he was disarmed, is it the protocol to use deadly force?
And that's all part of this investigation. Every video will be analyzed. Everything will be looked at. And that's part of the answers that I can't speak to every single thing that those officers thought, but this happened in seconds. They clearly feared for their lives and took action to defend themselves and the people around them. If you watch that and you listen to those videos, you can hear someone yelling, gun, 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 and those agents and officers reacted to that. So as this investigation goes forward, all of that will be analyzed.
She didn't really answer the question, Senator. And how can she sit there with a straight face? We have eyes. We can see it. We saw it with Renee Nicole Good video and the video from there. This one to me is even, it's more of a conclusion that they were the aggressors, not Alex Pretti.
But she's part of the problem. I mean, the reason why she can't admit that what happened there is because she set up the permission structure for this environment by making excuses for other people getting shot. These guys are doing everything that they're doing because they feel like they're not going to be held accountable. And she's part of that problem. And she's telling you, don't look at what your eyes see. Listen to my lying lips, right? The government is telling you to not trust your eyes. Isn't that the scariest thing right now? And there needs to be accountability, but there needs to be investigation. But that investigation needs to be done by an independent agency, not by someone who is going to actually look at this and come to the conclusion that they did everything right. And by the way, because you're fearful, that does not give you an excuse to shoot. I had 20-year-old boys and 19-year-old boys in the middle of the Iraq War, who were fearful all the time. That showed more compassion, more professionalism than these very experienced Border Patrol agents. That is not an excuse for shooting. And again, this is the reason why you act like a professional. You don't escalate a situation. You're always trying to de-escalate situations. You don't put yourself in that situation. There are so many steps, and Fanone understands this because when we ever have to go through an after-action report or do an after-action report, there were so many steps that were taken before they even shot him that caused this problem, and they should all be held accountable for all those steps up and down the chain.
You think they will be held accountable at some point?
I really hope that the prosecutors in Minnesota, and I think prosecutors from all over this country, need to start honing up on their skill sets and being able to go after federal agents that violate the civil rights of U.S. citizens, because I do believe this president is going to pardon all of them, but they are not subject to pardon if it's a state crime, and murder is still a state crime.
Isn't that why they don't want to? Perhaps they don't want the state to investigate, that they are blocking the state. You know they're blocking the state, right? I'm sure you know.
Absolutely,
that.
Of course they are. But videos are videos, and again, everything still is subject, I think, to the law. And I think no matter how difficult it is, local prosecutors, state prosecutors should be ready, getting their cases ready, conducting as much of these interviews that they need to be doing, bringing in all the evidence and holding it until this president is gone, so that we can hold these men accountable all over the country, because this is going to continue to happen.
Senator, I want to play this for you as well, and Michael. This is, and I hate to do this to you, insult your senses this early in the morning, but this is James Comer on TV. I think it's Maria Bartiromo who is questioning him. Here it is.
Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me, Maria.
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. He had his phone, and he was shooting. He was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction? And you are an elected official. What can you do about it?
Well, look, I don't think there's any question a majority of Americans want President Trump and ICE to go in and apprehend the criminal illegals. That's what President Trump campaigned on, and he's doing exactly what he said. I look at what happened in Minneapolis versus what happened in Washington, D.C. When President Trump sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., the Mayor Muriel Bowser, supported that. She worked, her local law enforcement worked with the president, and in a short period of time, they have really been successful in reducing the amount of crime in Washington, D.C. That was a big success. Fast forward to where we are in Minneapolis. We have a governor, an attorney general, and a mayor of Minneapolis who are getting people jacked up, trying to get them, convinced that this is, some type of illegal raid, that all their lives are threatened, and they've got all these white liberals coming in, trying to run over ICE, trying to, spray them and do everything to disrupt. And if I were President Trump, I would almost think about, okay, if the mayor and the governor are going to put our ICE officials in harm's way, and there's a chance of losing more, innocent lives or whatever, then maybe go to another city and let the people of Minneapolis decide, do we want to continue to have all of these illegals? Are we going to allow our governor, attorney general, and mayor to get away with this? And I think the people of Minnesota would rebel against their leadership, because it's very clear that a majority of Americans want the criminal illegals apprehended, and that's what ICE is trying to do.
Okay, so Senator, he never answered the question.
Well, he can't answer the question because it'll tick off Donald Trump, and they're still trying to figure out where the voter base is. That's what this is all about. But we have a duty to protect U.S. citizens, and you can have professional, detention of illegal aliens, and you can go after people. Why don't you use warrants instead of what's happening right now? Let's be clear why people are mad. They're racially profiling. Right? If you're Latino or Somali or look any of those, so you're being detained, you have to prove your citizenship. The fact that that's happening in our country by a federal law enforcement agency with no warrants should freak out everyone. They're going to people's homes without warrants. Fanone, tell me how often you're allowed to go into people's homes without warrants. Almost 0 times. There's a reason why we do that. We do that because we learned from what the British did to our U.S. citizenry back in the day when we were colonialists, and we know that we don't like that. We know when government comes in with a heavy hand that the American public, the public in general, will always push back, right? So these are the things they should be doing right away. And by the way, this whole idea there's criminality. Minnesota and Minneapolis is one of the safest big cities in the country, right? And if you're going in there to go after these, illegal immigrants that are here overstaying visas, whatever it is, then you should use your goal to do that. What he's saying is we're using this federal force to engage in everyday civil enforcement. That's not the role of the federal government. That is the role of the local police. That's why local police officers are well trained. They don't wear masks. They abide by warrants, because they know that they always have to have the support of the local populace in order for them to actually be safe too. These guys don't care. They're not from here. They just want to throw weight around, and that's why you're having this pushback. And lastly, again, I hate to harp on this, but even when I was in Iraq, the reason why we didn't go and bust everyone's heads up every time we went to a town is because exactly like this, the human condition does not like being bullied, does not like being pushed around. These guys are doing it on purpose. Trump and his people want an escalation so they can invoke the Insurrection Act now and figure out how to use that throughout the rest of the year.
The reason I ask you this is because you're an elected official. He's an elected official. And to hear that, it has to be frustrating at this point to have to sit there and listen to it. And you're going to be listening to that in Washington and from the other side pretty much. And I know that there are probably some Republicans who don't agree with any of what he said, or especially what happened this weekend, but they're afraid. They're afraid to say it. And again, the first question that I asked you, people want to know, what are our elected officials doing? And I say that because you can't just have the people in residence, good people like Alex Pretti and Renee Nicole Good out there on the front lines getting killed, and then not have our elected officials doing something. Should they be out there supporting people? Should they be out there on the front line standing between? I don't know, but people want answers, and that's what I would like to know from you. What should we be doing? What are you doing? And I need something. I don't know what to even tell my viewers anymore.
Well, you don't know because it sucks. This is a bad situation. And we're in a situation we've never been. Number one, at least here on the Sen side, we're stopping just the automatic funding of DHS, right? Why does that matter? We cannot be funding more and more. This is all being done because the administration came and supercharged ICE. And they gave them so much money that they have a quota to me. And if they don't meet the quota, they're all fired. That's essentially what's happening here. So we're holding that up. And we want to do is be able to come up with some sane little suggestions, or not even suggestions, but sane safeguards for U.S. citizens. Number one, warrants only. Stop racially profiling. Leave Minnesota. Stay out of our cities. Send Border Patrol back to the border. Those are the first steps. We're going to have to continue moving forward and figure out how more and more we can be effective. Don, this sucks. It does suck. What you're feeling is what a lot of people are feeling, including those that are in the U.S. Senate, because we don't have total power. But the one thing I can tell you, if the Democrats take power, there's going to be accountability. There's going to be people that are going to be impeached. There are going to be investigations. And we're going to make sure we hold all that. Even if this president does pardon people, we're going to go after all these guys. I'm going to take Bovino's pension. I'm going to figure out every ICE agent that acted in an illegal manner. They're going to get fired, or they're going to get sent to the most remote parts of this country if we can't find a way to actually get rid of them. We're going to hold everyone accountable. I promise you that it is upon that I will find everyone that I could, and we'll make sure they are held accountable. And they need to know that, because if not, they're going to continue acting the way that they're acting.
One more thing, and Michael, I promise you, because I have a whole thing that I want to get to, and I'm not taking a break because I think this is really important. I want to put this up, Senator, because this is Chris Mandel, who is the Republican candidate for governor in Minnesota, saying that he cannot support the national GOP's stated retribution on citizens of our state, nor can I count myself a member of a party that would do so. He said that he cannot look his daughter in the eye after this. What do you say? Saying he cannot support the national GOP, saying he can't look his daughter in the eye after this. What do you say to that?
Michael or me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's for you.
Well, look, just to make sure I understand, and not understand, I want people to understand, there actually are a lot of Republicans, a lot of law.
Now I don't know if I made it clear. He's dropping out of the race for governor.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I said it. Yeah.
There's a lot of law enforcement officers. There's a lot of veterans that are just disgusted by what's happening right now. This is an administration that has taken power, and they're going to ride and grind everybody to just make happy the 35% of their base. So there's people like this that are stepping up, and they're saying, I cannot be a part of this anymore, because they're right. This is not, and what they're doing is not anti-Republican, it's anti-American. The fact that they're using federal agents to suppress our U.S. cities, to go after people's civil rights, to be racially profiling them, to be executing Americans on the streets of our country, that is a severe problem. So we need to continue to move forward. We need to continue to make alliances with people like Chris, other Republicans, independents, law enforcement that are against what's happening here, because this is not normal. It is wildly unpopular too, by the way, what's happening. We just have to remind ourselves, because they're going to continue to try to lie to us, because they know what they did is wrong, and then now it's unpopular. And if we can continue to push, we will get these guys. We will make sure that there will be accountability, and we will make sure that this doesn't happen again as a country, which will have to be the next step after this, us to understand how we make sure that immigration enforcement is not weaponized against U.S. citizens.
Senator, we promised you that 10:45 Eastern time that you'd be off. It's 10:44, and we thank you. Do you have anything else you want to say? You got
walk over here.
Yes, thank you, Senator Ruben Gallego. We really appreciate it, of Arizona. Thank you. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time, with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, Join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.